Thank you for logging into this webinar. I'm Tim Coventry. I'm the CEO of Surf Life Saving. You can also see, and they'll hold their hands up as I introduce them, Ashman, who is basically was the team manager, the GBR team manager for the last events that we sent a team to, which coincidentally was in Italy. He was also on the selection panel for the GBR team. Gary Lee, please put your hand up. Gary is our swim coach expert, our pool and swim coach expert. Gary again was on the team last time around. He attended the event as the pool coach. And finally, Matt Trebilcock, who is new to our team. We were intending to ask Matt to go with the team to the Worlds in 2022, but he's conflicted because as some of you will know, his son is an elite athlete, a very elite athlete, and it would have been unfair to ask Matt to spend his time between the team and his son. So the high performance group is a bigger group than this, and as the program develops, we'll involve more of them. This is the core group that's just really responsible for delivering this webinar. The webinar will be non-interactive. There will only be presentations. At the second stage, when we move on with the people who have come forward and given their names and their details to want to be included in the program, and you'll hear more about that during the webinar how you qualify. We will have a fully interactive Q&A. We'll be asking you what you do. You'll be asking us all sorts of questions. And so for the athletes that decide to go forward to be part of the program, then it will be fully interactive in stage 2. The other thing I'd ask is that a lot of you are used to these Zoom conferences and you know that you can put your hand up and somebody will notice. We won't. This is a presentation only webinar. And I'd also ask you not to use the chat function. As I say, in the second section of this program, which will be probably before the end of the month, those coming forward into the program will have the full opportunity to ask all the questions they want to start to get into the program. And we'll want to ask you questions as well, and it'll be fully interactive. So moving on, what we're going to talk to you about this evening is we're going to give you an explanation of the GBR team selection process. And I would emphasize, and it will be said again, that this program is not connected to the GBR team selection process. It's an SLSGB program for SLSGB athlete members. But we are going to discuss the selection process because it's important that the new athletes understand how it works, what they'll need to show, and so on and so forth. So we're going to start with an explanation of the GBR team selection process. We're then going to move on to what athletes would have to commit to if selected for the GBR youth team, followed by what athletes will need to show to be considered for team selection. We're going to then let you know the probable timing of the GBR team selection events. And we're then going to talk specifically about this program and how to participate in the program. And finally, what happens next. So, with no more ado, we're going to move on to slide 1, which I'm going to present, which is the GBR team selection process. And for those of you who are watching who may have been involved in this before, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to listen to this again. We have a unique situation in the UK where we have essentially three governing bodies working, who all together are known as the GBR1 team, and that's ourselves, Royal Life Saving and Surf Life Saving Wales. And members can be selected from any one of those three organisations to be in the GBR1 team. And as we move towards the selection process, you will have the opportunity, if you're not an SLSGB member, you are a Royal member, or you're an SLSA Wales member, you will then have the opportunity, there'll be a notice that will go out to invite interest for selection. And if you qualify for selection, athlete in good standing and so on and so forth, a member of one of the organizations, then you will then put yourself forward for the selection process. The GBR team selectors are appointed by the GBR One team, and that is a joint committee, which we call the One Team Advisory Group, which consists of members from SLSGB, Royal Life Saving and SLS Wales. And they're the ones that take over full control of the selection process. The selectors appointed by the One Team Advisory Group will be the GBR team managers and coaches and specialist beach and pool coaches, directed by an independent chair. It's open, there's nothing hidden or closed about it. And basically, the GBR team managers and selectors have not yet been appointed for the 2022 World Championships. That process will start probably during August and September, so that by the time we get to asking the athletes to declare for selection, they'll be in place. And then that group, the selectors, will take over and they will run the selection process. There will be people who are on our panel, who you'll see tonight, who will be probably invited to be selectors again. And there'll definitely be some other people in our high performance team who will also probably be invited, but it isn't intended to be one only organization. The selectors are balanced between the three organizations. The selection process strictly follows an evidence-based point scoring system. We have a matrix of things that the selectors are looking for. It's agreed amongst the selectors how this will work, and it's also approved by the One Team Advisory Group, and they work on that matrix. So it isn't sort of what we like on the day or who we think is going to go. It's got to meet a matrix of things. And some of that will be discussed in later slides about what the selectors will be looking for. It works on the basis that individual athletes score points on observed performance following a rigid framework. There's no subjective evaluation, just observed facts. The GBR youth team for the 2020 Worlds, ILS talked about changing the format. Some of you might have heard of that, but the team format is going to remain at 12 athletes, and the scoring during the Worlds will not be medals, it will be team points. And again, we'll talk about this in a little more detail later in the presentation. So, as I said, the Worlds will be based on overall team's point score. Individual athletes' medals are important, but selectors will prefer athletes who are good at a number of events, and this can often tip the balance in a close selection decision call. So no one-trick ponies, better to be good at more than one thing. But again, we'll talk about this later. And the other thing you need to know is that the selectors, we don't publish, disseminate or explain selection scores, but feedback is given to those not selected. And so all the selectors will be charged, each one will be charged with phoning up those who didn't make it, discussing what was seen during the selection in pretty broad terms, suggesting things that you might work on to improve your chances for selection, but we don't publish the selection scores. Those stay as something that we think should not be shared. But you will get a lot of good feedback. So, Ash, I think this is you.
It certainly is, and thank you, Tim, and good evening, everybody. As Tim's introduced, my name's Ashley Mann, and I was fortunate enough to take the team to the last Europeans, which was ironically in Italy. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what you'll have to commit to if you're selected to the GBR team. Now, one of the first things we always do is get the athletes to sign a contract and adhere to a code of conduct. Now, as a young 18-year-old, you wouldn't be expected to sign that yourselves. That would generally be done by a parent or responsible guardian. Now, what does a code of conduct, athlete contract really mean to you? Well, it's a document that really sets out between the athletes and GBR Lifesaving a framework that expects behaviours for all athletes who are going to step up and represent their country. Athletes, whilst a member of the GBR Lifesaving team, agree to abide to this code of conduct at all times. Now, that's whether that be in training, representing at local competition, at your clubs, and more so when representing your country and be proud to wear the badge. The code of conduct's there for a reason. It covers a lot of elements. It covers your behaviour. So you acknowledge that you're really a role ambassador for your club, your region, the governing body, and more importantly, GBR Lifesaving. Be proud to wear the GBR badge. Conduct yourself professionally at all times with a standard of behaviour that we would all expect. You are positive role models. People will look upon you from below and above as individuals with high regard, and you need to continue to conduct yourselves in the right way. Whether it be with your team, when you're training, respect the decisions of team managers, your coaches, your assistants, and all those that are going to be supporting you. Attend as much GBR selection events as possible, unless there is good, legitimate reason you're unable to attend. Follow agreed programs that are put in place by the support from ourselves and your own coaches. Be of good sport and applaud all. Operate within the rules of Lifesaving. Observe good fair play, the code of conduct which sits under the ILS, ILSE rulebooks, and respect all competitors and colleagues. We also have in the code of conduct things such as alcohol. We talk about that. I know you're young and some of you probably will have never tasted it, but I'm sure you'll get and want the taste for it in the future. But it is a big no-no whilst representing GBR and committed to any GBR event. And finally, social media. Social media is huge, and we've been more apparent about that probably in recent days with social media through the Europeans and racism. Social media is a fantastic platform. We want to utilize social media to promote our sport, the good of it, to show and showcase for all. But we've also got to remember that social media can be a poisonous chalice, a platform which can create some significant problems. We don't want you commenting on individuals. We don't want you commenting on selection processes, but we want you to use it for the right reasons. Now, code of conducts are put in place and signed contracts for certain reasons. It enables us that if you step outside or breach, we have the ability to step you down from representing your country. No greater accolade than representation and wearing the badge. So bear that in mind. Now, around that as well, we get you to sign contracts for another reason. Unfortunately, with the sport that we're involved in and have been involved in for many years, it comes at a cost. To travel to such great events, such as Europeans and Worlds, comes at a significant price, thousands and thousands of pounds. And unfortunately, as organisations of SLS, ILS and ILS Wales, we're unable to fund that completely. And there's a requirement of some additional funds to support your travel and attendance. Now, if I use the Europeans from 2019, we forecast that it costs in the region of £800 per individual up front. And that comes part of your contract, and it will need to be paid for way before you travel. Now, that's a significant cost for all and things you need to bear in mind. And there are always ways around it from family, friends, and colleagues and sponsorship, but there are big costs. Those costs don't come for the outlay of the £800 it was last time, but also on top of that, you need additional monies for lunches, snacks, personal possessions and items you'd like to buy while you're traveling. And they're all things to bear in mind, but that shouldn't be the reason that you don't put yourself forward just because there's a financial recompense here. It's because you have a passion and a love and the ability to represent your country. Now, what comes in the big package? Well, in the package, we have travel, we have accommodation, we have food, we have the expenses of obviously representing your country and entry fees. As a team, when we went to Italy last time, we flew from Gatwick. Now, the cost of getting to Gatwick, that comes under your own personal expenses, but actually the travel out to an event is part and parcel of what we expect. When we get there, we have dedicated accommodation. We stayed in a lovely small hotel last time, and I'm sure that'll be what the GBR team will be looking for again. Half-bowl catering, breakfast, dinner. There are no other options. We stay as a team. We train as a team. We have laughs as a team. We have lows as a team. We represent and become one team wearing the GBR badge whilst you're attending the Worlds. There is no greater moment, and there's no greater comradeship than being in that one group of accommodation. It's not staying with friends, family, mum, and dad. You commit to the whole package. You turn up and fully participate in all events, pre-training events. You'll hear later in this presentation from Gary and Matt around obviously some of the things we're looking to put in place. We want to pre-prepare you for your biggest challenge ever. The challenge is on the world stage, which I hope you will all dream to become part of. Tim, if I could just get you to move forward a slide. And once again. So the other thing I want to talk about is the athlete requirements needed for you to be considered for selection. Now, you need the commitment to attend and compete at all the team selection events. And we'll hear about when those events are going to be. And it's quite a big commitment. They will be spread throughout different areas, not just within Cornwall, within Devon. It could be further afield. And there's a requirement for you to show your skill set at each and every one of those events. Not just turn up to one, but to turn up to all. To display performances and commitment, which is consistent with international competition levels. This isn't just about winning your local carnival. This is about stepping up to another level and ensuring that you've got the capability. The one thing you need to do is dream and believe. That quote came from a very well-known coach, and it always sticks in my mind. You might not think you're quite ready now, but actually, if you dream and believe, you can be. But you've got to dream and believe you're good enough to be on that international stage. And we'll hear about that in terms of some of the elements that you will require, possibly from Gary, in terms of pool times and levels of expectations. You've got to have the willingness and the ability to compete, not just at one event. We're not one-trick ponies, but you've got to compete at many an event. Don't channel all of your ability into one discipline. The poolies, we don't just expect them to swim up and down the pool. We'll expect them to be part and parcel of our beach teams. It could be sprint teams. It could be sea swims. It could be even other designated events. And the same for any of you beachies. Don't just be one-trick ponies. Think about a multitude of events. It's going to get you the ability to be selected and represent. Now, after selection, there'll be a commitment for you to be managed and supported by the GBR team managers, the coaches. That's not just before, we'll work with your coaches. I think that's really important to know. This is going to be something we've not really done before. As managers and as coaches of the GBR team, we can't coach you day in, day out, but we can support you and work with your coaches to get you to the right level to be the best you can be and represent. And finally, the big one is have that ability to meet the financial contribution. It's a big commitment, but that commitment should never put you off. There's always a ways around it, but you just need to be made aware that it comes at a cost, unfortunately. And that's not only a financial cost. It says financial contribution. It's a time and commitment cost that comes with it, that you will almost sell yourself to a commitment of training, time, dedication. But let me tell you, it's well worth it. And if you really want it, I suggest you go for it. Thank you, Tim.
Thanks, Ash. There is just one point on finance. What a lot of the team did last time around is that they did crowdfunding, GoFundMe, and it was very successful. The guys that got onto it early, and we had a bit of professional advice on that, and we'd repeat that, how to do it, how to go about it, and so on. And we'd repeat that for team members early on, and it was very successful. A lot of the team actually raised not only the money that they needed, but some extra money for other bits and pieces. So don't worry too much about at this time about the contribution. There are other ways to solve that problem. So we're now going to talk, I'm going to talk to you about the selection events and what will happen and the timings. The One Team Advisory Group are starting to discuss now. They've had their first provisional meeting. They will work during August to consider and select the team coaches and the selectors. And we're anticipating, subject to Boris's promise that we're all going to be safe and wonderful now for the rest of the year, that the GBR selection process will start in September, where a mail will go out to all the members of all the clubs, all the organizations, asking eligible athletes to declare interest for selection. We're anticipating that, again, COVID permitting, that the first selection event will be a pool test event at the end of October at Crawley. We've got the event set up, it's ready to go, and we're intending to include swim, that will be the first opportunity to athletes to show what they can do in the pool. And as Ash has said, it is important that you turn up to that. So first selection pool test end of October, the date's fixed. We're hoping, and we're talking now about the second pool test event during March 2022, and there will be a third. We're hoping to use a Royal event and also a Wales event, but there will be, the plan at the moment is to have 3 pool test events, 1 in October and 2 in March. The 2 in March are being discussed now. We'll announce those and you'll know those when you declare for selection. We're anticipating having 3 beach test events between May and mid-June. We know where 2 of those will be. We're waiting now for confirmation from Surf Life Saving Wales for the 3rd. One of them will be at Exmouth, the other one will be at Branksome Chine, and the 3rd one will be at a location in Wales. Those will run pretty close together because basically we can't start until the water's warm. So the earliest opportunity is going to be May to mid-June. Again, as Ash said, and Gary will confirm this, as I'm sure Matt will, it's really important that if you're serious about selection, you turn up to all the selection test events. Individual athlete selection will be offered before the end of June. We need to get the team in place. So you'll have an offer, you're then going to have to sign a contract, and then your selection will be confirmed. We want to get all of that done, hopefully before the end of June. And the reason we want to do that will become clear when, again, later in this presentation, the coaches and managers talk about what they want to do. So our plan is to have selection confirmed by early July. I don't know why that suddenly started doing that. Is that interference that you could all hear? I have no idea what's doing that.
Seems okay now, Tim. Try again.
I've turned the monitor off, not using it anyway. Selection confirmed early July. And then basically, GBR team training events, both pool and beach, July to mid-August, and you'll hear a little bit about that. And then the actual Youth World Championships in Italy are September the 28th to the 2nd of October. So, Matt, if the program behaves itself, Matt and Gary, you're now going to take over and talk about the development program.
Thank you, Tim. My name's Gary. I'm the pool coach. Good evening to all the athletes, coaches and parents present. And we have been asked on this brief slide is just emphasize why we are doing this. And it's quite simple. We're doing it because we want the best team we possibly can have to go forward into this World Championships and achieve the best possible position we can. And to do that, what we need to do, and it's only fair to do, is to give everybody an opportunity to prove themselves. And that's not just prove yourself at your favorite event, but to prove yourself at all events that potentially you could support GB with. As we well know from the last European Championships in Italy, we had a pool swimmer running one leg of the beach relay team to bring home gold for our men. We also had several beach people putting in very good efforts in the pool to help our relay teams achieve higher positions. So it is essential, as they've said, that please try to demonstrate your capabilities to everybody. So that really is the other reason we're doing it, is to allow you this opportunity. The third reason, which is probably as important as the other two, is we all do this for one reason, and that is enjoyment. So we want you, please, to enjoy what you're doing, enjoy being with the other potential team members and team management. And that is most important. In that respect, in the World Championships, relays play a significant part in our overall point score. So we will be looking to put together groups of athletes that get on well, that will feed off one another's energy and so take us forward. It's a well-known fact that with positive energy, we can step up at least a couple of places than a normal performance would give us. The way the pool events are looked at, and I will just separate the pool at the moment, is because in the pool events we have times. We know what you can do or what you should be capable of doing. This is a difficult championships because of COVID. So all we can do is use the last championships in 2018 in Australia as a guide, and we will be looking at the qualification times from those events to give us some idea on if you are capable of scoring points for GBR. And as both Ash and Tim have emphasized, this is all about getting points. We will stress that in regards to the pool events, that the competition at the Worlds is slightly different to anything we do here in the UK, because it's a heats and a finals. So there is quite a lot of pressure and quite a lot of commitment needed during those 2 to 3 days in the pool. Likewise, on the beach, we've got to concentrate, as well as the individuals, we've got to concentrate on those team events. And for the swimmers out there, you can contribute to this, not only in the sprints, but we've got 1 length swims straight out to the cans, and we have got fin relays and carries. So please, please come along to all the events and show what you can do. And that's the whole reason we are doing this, is because we want to pick the best team and we want to give you the opportunity to show you are part of that best team. Is there anything else, Matt, you would like to add into that section?
Not particularly to that section. I think you've covered that very well, Gary. I was just going to cover, if I may, what about the development program and why are we also doing this? I think Gary has articulated very well the reason, and it's about preparation. And Unfortunately, COVID has had a big impact on the preparation for the next GB Youth team and the next potential GB Youth athletes. We haven't seen anybody compete for 2 years. Invariably, the majority of you guys would have actually gone through a previous selection process or a test event previous, and having that understanding of the structure that you're going through. So the idea of the program that we're developing here is about that generating and you understanding how that selection process works for us moving forward. And I think that's one of the key things, isn't it, Gary? That, you know, we've got a cohort of athletes that we don't know about, we haven't seen yet. You haven't had the opportunity to actually showcase your skills and how they've developed over the years, because that's one thing that we understand that happens in youth development. It happens quite quickly and unexpectedly at times. So the whole idea that what we're trying to do with the program that we've got in front of you now is to get you guys in the best possible position, that when you put the toe on the line at the selection event, it gives you the best possible opportunity to get selected and represent GBR, which I think Ash quite well articulated through there. I think, Gary, you've highlighted it, and Ash has as well, about the way that GBR operates. It's a team event. There's 24 events. There are, I think, in total, 12 in the pool, 12 on the beach. They all score the same amount of points. So it's about actually that points total that you're actually striving to actually define through. So what we're trying to do with the program is develop something that's going to help you, and importantly, your coaches. And I think this is one of the big things that we're going to try and deal with this. You guys are supported by a fantastic range of coaches. Some will have experience of GBR before and the setup, some of them will not. It's not part and parcel of the whole coaching structure within SLSGB as a level 1, level 2 coach, but it's also about us actually helping your coaches help you be in that preparation, so you're in that best possible position. Wouldn't you say, Gary?
Matt, you've come in with such a large point there, because as being a club coach for many years with swimmers going off and swimming for GB, and I think I'm speaking for a lot of coaches here, there's nothing more frustrating than to have prepared your athlete for events or a event, and then to find that that poor athlete has not been allowed the time to sufficiently prepare when they get to that venue, or has had to perhaps do things they would not have rather done prior to the big day of their event. Clearly, there has to be a compromise, because we are a team and the competition is both beach and pool. But please be assured, coaches, that we will listen and we will try and work with you to ensure that your athletes are as happy as they possibly can. And I've used this before. Happiness is so important, because we do want a relaxed, happy team. When you get to a World Championships, Ashley has started the ball rolling by telling you the pride, etc., of wearing this badge, and it is a tremendous honor to do that. But when you get to a World Championships, the pressures that are there are huge. And what we are going to do is we are going to move ourselves away from those pressures. And we do that by creating a happy, relaxed atmosphere. So when you hit the pool and you feel that pressure, then you go. You're not going at 6 o'clock the night before, so you can't sleep and compete the next day. And please be assured, we will do our best to make sure that is the case. Matt.
Yeah, absolutely, Gary. And I think you know, that's one of the key things about the next stages in the program that we're looking to deliver. At the moment, you know, the way that we will actually try and work with all of you, you know, assuming that, you know, you're going to move forward into the next stage and want the support. It's not all about us being able to kind of coach you on a day-on-day basis. You know, we've got people all over the country that will be vying for that selection. But what we're going to be trying to do is utilising a number of different tools to try and get you into the best possible position when you come through to that selection and onward for GB. That's also, like I said before, working with your coaches so they understand, and some of them will already, and I appreciate that, but some will not understand the differences between how the GBR setup, the structure works, and those expectation levels that will be on with you at that point. So the next stage of the process, we are looking to invite your coaches. We want to speak to your coaches as well. We want to actually work and get their support to help GB, because that's the way that GB will be the most successful, is if we're all pulling in the same direction and working together. And those are the guys and girls at the level that we're working with you that will be able to help you. They'll be able to help you prepare mentally. They'll be able to get you ready to face the pressures that will come through, as Gary quite rightly said, that you will be in the mindset that you will understand what that expectation levels are to allow you to perform to the best possible place that you can perform. Now, we're all, I know, sick of Zoom, but actually Zoom has taught us some wonderful things. We can get together a lot of people from all over the country in one go and have a discussion with you and provide that evaluation and provide that guidance. We hope that over the period as we develop the program, Boris and everything permitting, we will be able to have events where we will be able to speak to you face to face, that we'll be able to actually get some events together where we can actually work with you, and we'll bring in athletes that have been at the top of the game, hopefully, that will bring in people that will understand what it is like to compete in those environments. Those that were competing potentially out in Italy last time, to actually help you guys as well actually prepare. But ultimately, this program won't give you any one-upmanship in terms of the selection process. The selection process will be open and transparent and will be equal for all. But what we're trying to do with the program is help the SLSGB athletes into a position where you are best positioned to actually perform the best possible that you can do on that day, and then onwards for GB. Hopefully that's right, isn't it, Gary?
That's all we want. We just want your best. And we want you to do it, and we want you to enjoy giving your best.
So I think that would cover most of what we wanted to say, wasn't it, Gary, at this time?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm very excited about this, so I think so.
Thank you. So I'm not sure which slide we're on, Tim. We're moving through a few.
We've moved forward now to Ash.
That's it.
If he's ready.
Certainly am. And thank you, Matt and Gary. And I hope to those that are listening in, especially the athletes, it gives you the idea about what we're trying to provide for you and why we're putting these systems in place. And the fact that this is a team element, this is involving coaches. We've never done it before. We want to involve them more, to give them the understanding of what we're trying to do to you, to help you to be the best you can be. So with that, I hope that it's given you the drive and the want to be able to be part of this development program. So what is the program? The program is open to the youth age categories who are members of SLSGB who wish to be considered for the selection for the World's ILS in 2022. Now, that'll be those that are going to reach the age of 15, 16, 17 or 18 by the 31st of December 2022. You'll be the eligible individuals. Anyone who sits in the 14 or the 19 age bracket on 2022 is not eligible. Now, don't think you're sneaking, because we will be checking. We'd love to provide support for all, but it is dedicated to the 15, 16, 17, 18 who will be those ages by the 31st of December 2022. So what you need to do now is really have thoughts, speak to your parents, more importantly, speak to your coaches, and carefully and honestly consider, do you think you want to be challenging yourselves to be selected at those events to become a GBR athlete? Are you good enough? If you don't think you're good enough, be open and honest with it. But actually, if you think you're borderline, give it a go. We want to see everyone out there. You're going to be surprised. There's people who probably don't quite think they're there, we haven't seen, who actually may surprise us and may surprise each other. So stick yourself in there, go through the process that I'm about to give you in a minute. Ask your coach for your support, ask your parents, and we will help you to develop onto stage 2 and hopefully become part of this program. So how do you do it? The next bit is, I need you to send a request by email to mail@slsgb.org.uk. And some of you will be frankly writing that down fastly now. I think it's going to come up again at the end. And that'll be to register your interest. We will then need to know more about you. We're going to ask you some questions. We'll ask some coaching questions to help us really build an idea about you as an individual, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, what your focus is, and what you're going to go for in terms of your selection for being a team member. And can we push you onto other events to become not the one-trick pony, but someone going to support the team? Because we are few and far between. There are only 6 girls, there are only 6 boys, and you've got to contend with a lot of events across the board and support each other. So that we also know, we want to know about your current training levels, what you do, what your coach recommends you do, and then we can work with you and your coaches as well to give you an idea of what we would like to see you do. Now, this information is going to then be reviewed by the SLSGB High Performance Group. That's going to include probably in the near future GBR team managers, coaches, and it's going to develop into a bigger group of people. And when relevant, the experts will come on board as well. Now, remember that you should be looking to develop in all areas. That's not just the beach, the pool, the events, the selection events we talked about. Get yourself there, get yourself seen, show what you can do. Even if you don't believe you're going to be the best, you will still be required to be part of that team. If we don't see you at the pool, we won't know you can do anything in the pool. You may knock yourself out of consideration for selection. If you're not a pool, if you're a poolie, get yourself down to the beach. As Gary said, one of our best sprinters who brought home the gold medal was actually one of our dedicated poolies who will probably run one of the fastest sprints of his life against Chris Parry. So let's see you getting yourself down, pool selection, beach selection, but more importantly, let's see yourself, get yourself down to mail@slsgb.org.uk to get yourself on this development program. We look forward to seeing you.
Thanks, Ash. So just now moving on to the final slide. What happens next? So all who register for the development program, and Ash has talked about sending a mail in, will be asked to participate in a second Zoom meeting. And we're hoping that Zoom meeting will be fine down. Everybody won't be able to participate in that, but what we're going to try and do is when you send in your details, we're going to talk to you about where you are and where you're at. It will be up to you to decide after discussions in the second stage whether you want to go forward. And the going forward next will be, as Matt had said, an all-involved Zoom meeting where everybody who's been asked to participate, plus some of the coaches, will be on one Zoom meeting where we'll answer your questions. You know, mums and dads and coaches may have questions that they're dying to ask tonight. That's when they'll be able to ask the questions. If need be, we'll run that second stage in 2 sessions if it turns out to be too long in one. But we'll make sure that in that second stage, everybody's had a chance to ask questions. We'll recap on what we're going to do, and we'll then start to talk about the detail, a little bit of the detail about what we're going to do going forward. The meeting will be specifically targeted, first of all, having an athlete who's eligible and thinks that they can make it. And secondly, with anyone who's involved in that athlete, which might be a parent and or a coach. As I said, we'll recap and explain the detail about how the program will work, and we'll begin to flesh out how the athlete can be supported. But as both Gary and Ash and Matt have said, this program will only work if you involve your coach. We can't do it all. We're a small organization. We're going to do the best that we can to help you, but it's absolutely essential, if it's going to work for you, that your coach comes on the journey with you on this program so that we can find out from the coach. We can advise the coaches. Some of the coaches won't need advice. Some of them won't think, some of them will think they don't need advice. That's their choice. And at the end of that session 2, we're then going to ask you at the end of that session, of those session 2, for you to confirm that you want to go forward. And at that point, we're then going to start to know a lot more detail about you. I really want to emphasize it's been said 3 times, this is not part of selection, although it sounds like it. What we're trying to do, it's an SLSGB program for SLSGB members. What we're trying to do is to prepare young people to get into the selection process and to have the best chance of being the best athlete that they can possibly be. That's what it's about. So don't feel that if you don't participate, that it's going to put a black mark up against you for selection. If you don't participate, you'll get equal opportunities, as Ash has said, to come along to the selection events, strut your stuff, show what you can do, and if you're good enough, you'll make it through on your ability. You won't need to be part of this program. If you think this program will help you, that's what it's there for. The final point, again, on the selection test events. If you decide not to be part of this program, please, 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 when you nominate for selection, plan to go to all the selection test events. It's really, really important, because you, your mum and dad and your coach may know all about you and what your potential is. The selectors won't know you, they won't have seen you. And this is why we're going to have 2 pool test events and 3 beach test events. And I cannot emphasize more what you've already been told by Ash, Gary and Matt, that you really, really, if you're serious about selection, you need to turn up to all those events. And we will publish the dates and details of those events when we open the selection process. I'd just like to thank the panelists for their participation. Quite a lot of work's gone into this behind the scenes. It's involved about 4 quite long and detailed into the night meetings. I hope that you who've been watching this will appreciate it. For those of you who've been furiously taking notes and probably won't remember it all, this session has been recorded. The recording will go up on the SLSGB website within the next 2 days, and it will be there, so you can go back and revisit it, you can listen to it, you can remind yourself of all the details before you make any decisions. So recorded and on the SLSGB website in 2 days' time. So a final reminder, all athletes wishing to participate must be members of SLSGB. Send the request to register, as you've already been advised, to mail@SLSGB. Please head the mail youth athlete and then insert your name, so that we've then got track through your email heading of who you are and your first point of contact. If you want to ask questions before you register, please do that through mail@SLSGB, and those mails will be redirected to either the panel members or to relevant people to help you if you still need further guidance. And remember that if you're under 18, your mail to us requesting participation must be from a parent or guardian on behalf of the athlete. And that's it. Does anybody want to add anything from the panel before we close? No. Well, thank you, everyone. Thanks again to the panel, and hope we're going to see you participating in the program. Thank you.